All right, welcome to the Benzo Rehab Dungeon. This is episode 44 now, right? Yeah, 44.
Yeah.
My name is Michael Deebs. I'm the host. I'm joined, as always, by Danko Suvin from the Instagram handle @DankToLose.
Still here.
And we have John, the producer, as well. We have a special guest today. His name is Ian. He goes by Sacri.Legio on Instagram. And he is our resident Pete Buttigieg expert.
Poor soul.
And he'll probably tell me how to pronounce Pete Buttigieg's
It's
name.
racist if you pronounce it wrong. It's just like Kamala.
So to clarify why it is racist, just for the gags for this episode, Mr. Pete Buttigieg is Maltese.
That's like the same as being
what?
like a BIPOC woman of color, right?
It's a type of falcon. It's a type of bird.
The Maltese people, for the people that may not know where this country is located, Malta is sandwiched between the southern Italian islands and Tunisia. The language that the Maltese people speak is a derivative of Sicilian Arabic, which is a dead language. Most Maltese people are polyglots, speaking a mixture of English, Maltese, Arabic, Italian. Not the least of which is Robert Buttigieg, the intrepid father of Proconsul Pete,
who is a Gramsci scholar.
Yeah, he is a radical revolutionary scholar, much in the fashion of many that have come out of Southern Europe and the Southern Mediterranean. Which is really confounding. I can't imagine what it's like to be someone from Malta, which has been like the stepping stone for like a dozen imperialist powers over the last 500-600 years. Possibly one of the most heavily colonized islands on the planet by repetition and by stretch of time. It's only been a unified and independent state since maybe the 40s, maybe.
Seems right.
It was... Most of its history through the 20th century was as a military base, predominantly throughout the Second World War.
Are you saying that Malta is something like a thalassocratic Afghanistan?
I actually don't know how to respond to that adequately.
Dugan has entered the chat.
Yeah, well, we're going to come back to him later.
Oh, nice! Dugan
cool.
talk,
Yeah.
always open.
We've been wanting to talk about Dugan a little bit. So before we start diving too much more into this,
we should talk about the fact that he's a polyglot, which means he has multiple partners.
Oh no! We're skipping the normal intro format, which is where I ask John, how are you doing?
You want to know?
Yes, John. The
You have to say his full name, John the producer. How are you?
We're gonna revisit that drug policy after this.
Okay.
Just by the way, HR's been contacted.
Yeah, I mean, I keep putting my own HR complaints in, and I just keep getting.
That I keep showing you my butthole. All right.
Yeah,
it's a normal workplace thing. Everybody's seen their boss's butthole once or twice.
That's true.
You need to read the fine print in those contracts. There's not enough of you. There's not enough John the producers to unionize yet, so you're just gonna have to read up.
Keep giving hand jobs behind bowling alleys. Yeah.
So, anyways, how are you doing, John? Because that was the question.
I'm good. I'm great. Yeah.
Cool. Glad to hear it. After you've been verbally abused by people who aren't your boss and don't pay you anything, I'm sure you're doing fine right now.
Yeah. No. It makes me feel safe.
Good. Yeah. Dorian.
Man. Wait. Hold on. Was there going to be a question with that?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like implied that I'm asking the same
what do you
thing.
Mean? Like,
you could infer that I meant to ask you, like, how are you doing?
Oh, how am I doing? Well, I'm doing all right. I've been sleeping a lot more than usual. which is incredible.
You're usually online until like 4 or 5 in the afternoon, or 4 or 5 in the morning, rather. Yeah.
And then usually like my sleep schedule is 1 or 2 hours a night, or no, that's a lie. Like 2 to 4 hours a night, and then sometimes some little naps. But recently, I've been having these horrifying depression naps. Where I go for like
not good sleep.
No, it's like 12-hour chunks of time where I just pass out, and I think it's because of what our guest made us do, which is read Pete Buttigieg's both of his books. I mean, each of us read one.
Each took it. We'll get into that.
This is probably a bad time to bring up that I am billing the Benzo Rehab Dungeon for therapy, because where Mr. Deebs has read Trust, which is the most recent manifesto from Praetor Pete, and Mr. Suvin has read The Shortest Way Home, which is the terrifying autobiography by the politician formerly known as Mayor Pete. I have read the autobiography 3 times and then listened to the audiobook that he narrated himself, and then I read Trust once, and then I listened to the audiobook before I came in here. And this is a good time to bring up, I have never used Reddit until I started speaking to Mr. Deebs, and I looked, there is a Pete Buttigieg fan thread thing on Reddit. I don't know how Reddit works. I've never been on Reddit. I've never been on 4chan. I was like 20 when I figured out what a green text was.
I think that's a 4chan thing anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would
What's
like
going on with you, man? You're strangely healthy. You're not nearly internet poisoned enough.
I would like to. I've never advocated anybody go on Reddit ever.
That's fair.
I hate Reddit. I think Reddit is a dumpster fire.
Yeah.
And
but
it's weird that no, I would never recommend anybody go on 4chan either. It's weird that that you went to Reddit because of me, because I would never tell you to do that.
Okay, well, I had to do what I needed to do to complete my research. Right.
Which was not an assignment I gave you either.
Not an assignment. It was something that happened. And I
believe we both had some sort of like drunken late night conversation about how much we hate Pete Buttigieg.
Yes.
Hold on, I've noticed something here, which is that when something happens and we all end up agreeing to do something like read Jordan Peterson's books, Mike is willing to claim that he has assigned it, but when we all are forced to do something by Mike, he refuses to refer to it as an assignment.
Yeah. Well,
this is it's something to psychoanalyze.
It's the privilege of being on top.
Well, this was a little bit, the books were a little bit less painful for me, because I have actually taken it upon myself over the last few years. I've read the autobiographies or autobiographical or biographical books from every president going back to Carter.
Oh, wow.
I think I might have missed H.W. I might have missed Herbert Walker, but it started for me.
A quick question.
Sure.
When you were diagnosed with autism, did that like upset your parents a lot, or?
I've a more genuine question.
Sure.
Which is that who is your what was your least favorite and your most favorite of these?
Of the Buttigieg books?
Well, no, of all of these books by these presidents and.
By far, by many leaps and bounds, I don't know what possessed me to do this, but I read The Art of the Deal all the way through, and that was a dumpster fire.
I have a copy of it.
Yeah. I'm sure you've never read it though.
Not yet.
I would say the 2 worst were The Art of the Deal, and then it's like just like a hair's breadth between that and A Promised Land, which is Obama's autobiography, which was
of which he's written what, 3?
Yeah, he's read 3. A Promised Land was gifted to me, and that was actually the first presidential autobiography that I had ever read. I didn't want to read it, but the person who gave it to me expected me to know the content, and I was like emotionally beholden to to person.
You were dating Obama?
No, I was not. I was not dating this person. But
you were in a polycule with an Obama fan.
Polycule? Hold on. I need to make a plug really quick, which relates to
for our polycule.
For her polycule. Shit, I just forgot the name. But a buddy of mine also has a podcast. I just listened to his most recent episode, and it's fantastic. And I'll remember it by the time that it's.
Is it the buddy that we both know, or
we know a few? I'm not sure. Zai?
Oh no, I don't know.
But anyway, so great podcast. They were talking about academia and feminism and economy and all sorts of beautiful things, and cinema. He's a huge.
Well, we can
film
probably
nerd, but
if you remember the name and whatever afterwards,
we'll
I can
put
just
it in
put it in the description or something.
But there's a term that they used, which was incredible, which is a precarapule. Which is a polycule.
No, I think it's self-explanatory.
Right, but
that is not self-explanatory.
It's a polycule that exists for the purposes of dealing with economic precarity.
Okay, so this is like
they're always precarious.
This is like a phone tree for sugar babies. That's what that is.
But no, it's like this idea of, our economy is suffering more and more, and you have to have, it's so hard to have like a single breadwinner family, and so you start a precarapule, so that you can have 3 breadwinners but like 5 people.
That's just Mormonism.
Yeah.
Is there like a sexual element to this, or is it just
they're all
like
fucking.
Okay, all right,
except
all
for
right,
the one
all right.
that wants to get cocked.
Look,
okay, all right.
I was gonna say like,
all right.
If I'm paying for your dinner, no, I'm just kidding. That's horrible.
It's 2 hot wives, a sigma, an alpha, and a cock.
So a couple of notes that I want to get into before we start really going hard on Pete.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, that's what we're talking about.
The viewer may notice that the cameras are all fucked up and different for this recording, and that's because this is our first actual studio guest.
Beautiful.
I'm not going to do anything performative, like say we're all vaccinated. I don't even know, and I don't care.
What? 2 of us are.
No, I am in fact. Yeah, well, I got my.
Now we're making it performative. Yeah. So thanks, guys.
You virtue signaling fucks. I'm not vaccinated, and I refuse to be for the next couple of days.
Okay.
And the reason and the reason is that they used to experiment on black men with vaccinations and
me, not that far off. From a black man,
a shade or 2 away.
Yeah.
And then what was the other thing I was gonna bring? We haven't asked Ian. How are you doing?
Yeah,
I'm okay. I'm better than I thought I would be. I thought I'd be falling over in my chair right now. I have driven down here from the city of San Redacted, located in the San Redacted Bay Area. I have
kind of gave it away with the Bay Area.
There's a lot of sands up there.
There are. I hit the road at 1 a.m, and here we are at like roughly like 7:45.
You're stupid.
Yeah, I am stupid. I am stupid. And now that we're actually in the thick of it, I realize how stupid I was. No, I was.
Isn't worth it at all.
I was in my vehicle en route to the destination about 30 minutes into this drive. I was
what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah, I was like half an hour. I was only a half an hour into what was really like, it turned out to be like a 15-hour drive.
Lord
and
Jesus.
I thought to myself, oh wow, this is going to be really long. And that was the first time that I ever considered that in the entirety of it. Other than that, I'm feeling fine. I'm really excited to be here.
Yes, we're glad to have you. We have a little group chat together, the 3 of us, and it's been fire.
It has
it's
been
unbelievable.
Fire
we've been reading Pete Buttigieg's books and bitching about the assignment that we all gave ourselves.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's go into that. So you've read all of Pete's books and watched the documentary, right? Isn't there a documentary?
I have not watched any documentary.
Oh, thank God! I was like, oh my God, there's a
I had it in my brain space that there was a documentary.
There's not a documentary, but what there is his husband Chasten also wrote a book that came out early 2020, I believe. I have not gotten to it yet. I had intended to start it. I haven't yet. I'm going to go back to it, and I will just kind of spam our group chat with things for you guys to complain about and
for sure. No,
shitpost about in the future.
And I really like the relationship that Chasten and Pete have, because you can tell that it only exists because Pete gives him opportunities, right? Like, to a certain extent, like I don't think they love each other so much as they like have a professional relationship.
That's an interesting take. I mean, I could see that being the case, but I didn't get that as being the vibe in the book that I read. But
okay, maybe that's just what I got from Trust.
Well,
Right.
he only mentions Chasten once, and it's like
he barely mentions him.
Barely mentions him. I think I
Yeah.
could count on one hand how many times Chasten even comes up.
Yeah.
Chasten's his husband, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
John, I don't know if you've read either of these books. I don't know if you put yourself through this
we
emotional...
didn't make John do
No.
that. We made him listen to Jordan Peterson.
Oh, okay. All right. Then that's
Yeah.
for
enough.
another assignment. And,
That's enough.
and
So
yeah,
one more book left.
So one more book
HR
left.
has a lot of really fuzzy lines that were allowed to cross, but making him read another book was not one of the things.
Okay.
That,
That's interesting. That's
the
interesting.
union got together and
That's
they really put their foot down on it.
That's
so.
interesting that your asshole is within the purview of things that are acceptable to digest, but
His asshole is actually the purview.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
It's the perimeter
Again,
around it.
Okay, I
Perfectly
see.
normal to see your boss's asshole.
But
Okay.
the only times that I can recall him mentioning Chasten, which I feel so weird pronouncing it that way, I always just think Chasten.
It's Chasten.
No, I figure it is. But
Which
it feels
Chasten is kind of an ironic name for a gay man, right?
That's true, because it's not very chaste
exactly
at
yeah.
all. But
You know-
there's a quote from Hamlet that's playing through my head now, but I'm not going to make you guys do that.
Thanks.
But
Thank you.
there's this. The only times that it brings him up in Home, or that. Okay, it's 3 times. He's talking about it's really hard to online date, and then actually doesn't bring him up really. So,
Yeah,
so
doesn't.
sans that one, and then he brings up how his husband had to deal with other people mentioning me when they talked to him. One time at a grocery store, when someone interrupted him when he was at the freezer section, saying, "Your husband better stop fucking up the roads." Which it's interesting. He's a transportation guy now.
Yeah, I
and
assume that's something we'll get into.
Right. And the other one in that space being that he was a teacher. He taught at a school, and someone ended up asking him, "Is this your idea or your husband?"
Oh.
Which apparently, but the
God,
last
he's so
one
fucking
is
boring.
just that there's a very short vignette talking about Chasten's family.
Okay, because the one that really stood out to me...
Was there another one?
The one that really stood out to me, the one that has been cemented in my mind and it infuriated me. So if the reader, or the listener, sorry, is not aware...
They don't read.
Okay, fair enough.
They listen to us. Like, they clearly don't read.
I don't even read. None of us read.
Yeah, I can't read.
Peridor Pete grew up and became mayor of a town called South Bend, Indiana, which is located in, I believe, the extreme northwest corner of the state of Indiana,
It's
bordering
very close to
Michigan.
Yep.
And it was originally home to the Studebaker manufacturing plant.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time that Pete had showed up, it had been, as a child, it was extremely depressed. It has always been a heavily redlined community, so you have a very heavily segregated black community on one side, and then everyone else is a smattering of Slavic and Eastern European ethnicities, and the Buttigieg family, although they are none of these things, fit very well into it, because he mentions that they have kind of like a funny last name, and everyone out there being mostly like Hungarian or Polish or Czech or like Yugoslav fit very neatly into that. And so
you don't have a last name that reminds me of sausage and cabbage.
Yeah.
This is so weird.
But what he does point out is that by the time that he and Chasten buy a house, the house that they buy, you know, this was the median price of a home in South Bend before Pete became mayor, floated around like $30,000 to $50,000, and now all of the houses in South Bend, the median price is around $300,000, and
that's not a good thing, Pete.
It's not a good thing. So, in Pete Buttigieg's mayoral term in South Bend, he transformed this depressed industrial town into like a slice of Silicon Valley. It has become a tech oasis, and as American history has told us, when you focus an entire town's economy on one industry, it's just great and nothing ever goes wrong.
No.
There is no such thing as economic collapse when you fixate your entire town onto one particular industry. It's and that's why Studebaker is still proudly making cars in the USA, and they never filed for bankruptcy. But what really made me see, then this is what really stood out, because it was one of the few rare times, and literally between both books, I believe it's 5 times, he mentions Chasten. Their mortgage is roughly $800.
Dear God.
I would kill somebody for that to be my rent
for
on a place that I'm never going to own.
For a bunch of broke boys on the West Coast, that is infuriating. It's just him and his husband in, I believe, like I think he mentions it's like an over 1,800 square foot house.
Yeah, well, he also mentions, and maybe this is the same property, maybe it's not, but he mentions on his like list of accomplishments towards the end, because he was talking.
Yeah.
I even forget what the fucking point was, because he was talking about how I had done so many different things, but none of them were. Oh, it was him talking about Chasten not talking about him.
Yeah.
He was saying, oh, I did all these incredible things with my life, including the fact that I own one of the most expensive historic homes inside of my community.
Yeah.
But I had never even had a boyfriend.
Yeah.
And it's just like, motherfucker, if that's the same house and you're paying $800 a month for it, I'm going to kill you. I'm not going to kill Pete Buttigieg, but it would not be wrong if I did.
You had the thought. Well, not the thought crime, but yeah.
I did not have the thought crime of killing Pete Buttigieg.
So one thing I really think that isn't discussed enough, from the perspective of Chasten. Can you
It's poor Chasten.
and I don't know how they met, honestly, because I never looked into it and I don't care.
It's like, I don't believe in either of the books.
But he does talk about being on like online dating sites and shit, right?
But here's the thing.
Can you imagine being the guy that swipes right on Pete Buttigieg?
Right. Here's the thing, though. I don't believe he did meet him through online dating.
Well, you've seen a picture of Chasten, right? That he looks like the kind of guy that would swipe right on Pete Buttigieg.
That's true. But with online dating,
they both look like they have stock portfolios.
The thing that happens more often than not with this, and is my problem with online dating, is that you find people that you absolutely align with on everything. Right? Like, that's the whole point of online dating, is that you're like, okay, your IQ is within 4 points of mine, and you have the same, like, policy beliefs, and we both love sushi the same way.
Is that Bumble, where you list your political beliefs?
Yeah, they all do, but Bumble is the one that
that matches you based off of it.
No. Bumble is the one that has women approach you.
They would never do that.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've been more popular in Bumble than anywhere else because I'm a beta cuck and I can't approach women.
They can smell your subservience.
No, but because you're always looking for someone that's exactly like you, I don't believe that they would have found themselves through online dating.
That's probably true. Yeah, you're right.
But it's Chasten's family that's kind of right-leaning. I don't know if Chasten is, so maybe I'm off base with that.
That's not, but here's the thing, is that isn't off base for Pete Buttigieg himself, because going back to Shortest...
He does love Pence.
Going back to Shortest Way Home, if you go all the way back from his teenage years through his candidacy as mayor, he mingles and he tries to like meet this really bizarre common ground between Democrats and Republicans.
He's with the Young Republicans.
Yeah, he's with the Young Republicans, and it's really funny because he was running for some sort of like high school position, some high school government sort of a thing, and the Young Republicans put out some sort of like mailing this newsletter that said he was like a dangerous socialist, and they mailed it to his house under his name, under his mailing address. He was affiliated with the Young Republicans in South Bend, and they mailed him a letter warning about himself.
Yeah.
And that was something that stood out to me that kind of made me cackle.
Right, and then he's also he's extremely forgiving and friendly towards Pence.
Yes.
And when we're talking about Pence finally being exposed to some kind of monster, as if that was ever hidden.
For sure.
Buttigieg is like, it was so shocking for this to occur. But then even then, he never really comes out as being like, this was monstrous. He kind of says, man, and it sure seems kind of strange that I would still, see him as a person. But I did.
So that actually brings up something that I found in Trust, which is that there's several times, and Trust, to give an overview, and I can do this in like probably 3 sentences.
About as long as what he lists his military career as being. Yeah.
So Trust is a book about how the American people used to have trust in each other and the systems of government.
No, we didn't.
What?
First off, wrong. Secondly,
are you a communist?
And then the second sentence of the review is we lost that trust, and then the third sentence of not a review, sorry, a summary. A review I would go into hysterical yelling, but a summary of it. The third sentence of that summary is, and we need to trust again.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah,
that's all you're getting out of Trust. But he does this weird thing where he talks a bunch about how Reagan, undermined public trust a bunch. But then he has this weird admiration for Reagan at one point because of, and this is what's wild about it, he has this weird admiration for Reagan because of when Reagan admitted that we had sold arms to terrorists on like a national TV. And he's like, and because the president had exercised this level of transparency with the people began to trust him again, and he admires that.
Also the president going off on the whole, I have heard that these horrible things have occurred, and I know them to be true, but in my heart, I know they are not.
He says it's part of Killer Mike's Reagan track.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, where he says something to the effect of, "We do not negotiate with terrorists.
Oh yeah.
I know this in my heart to be true, but the facts and evidence laid out before me say that it is
right.
not."
Right.
And so that's where he has, and the tone is definitely written in admiration for Reagan being transparent in that way. After he's admitted several times that Reagan undermined public trust.
All liberals love Reagan. Sorry, what was that?
What I was going to say is that he pins the deterioration of the American people's trust in the government entirely on Reagan, and then expresses admiration for him.
Yeah.
This man, he really confuses me. And so the first time I started with The Shortest Way Home, that was the first book that he put out, and I started it before Trust was released. Trust was his Rona drop. It's a short book. It came out in November of last year.
It's what, like 140 pages, and roughly the last 40 pages of that are speeches.
Just speeches.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a fucking book.
No.
I think that should be...
No, honestly, that's an exercise in masturbation.
I was talking about this in... Sorry, I'll let you finish in a second. But,
go ahead.
But I was talking about this in the workshop, where if you write a novel and it's under 250 pages, and it's not the most incredible writing I have ever read, you should put a gun in your mouth. No one should pay for that.
No.
It's not a thing.
No.
I mean, if it's a pamphlet on theory or something, that's different. Like those are essays. But
something freely distributed rather than something sold.
But a book about your life that's a fucking 100.
There is something that is like that has like shades of like neoliberal manifesto in Trust, and I feel that for whomever read The Shortest Way Home, which I feel is kind of The Shortest Way Home is... Do you have the copy there with you?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's just that Mike has one of my favorite books, and I did make a space for theory in this, but one of my favorite books sitting here, it's 110 pages. But it is theory. Okay, sorry, go on.
The Shortest Way Home it begins in a very digestible sort of way with about the same level of maturity as Holden Caulfield and Catcher in the Rye. And what I mean by that is it's completely fucking insufferable. It is this very cutesy, this very kitschy, like it almost feels like he starts off by describing a snowstorm on his first day in office, and it kind of reminds me of like a shitty version of Charlie Brown Christmas. It's okay.
We got shouting.
No, I wasn't sure what pissed me off so much about that opening, apart from it being trite, but I didn't recognize how trite. And
and that's about as trite as you can get.
So good. Yeah.
It starts cute and it jumps erratically all over the place. The shifts in time are inconsistent. There's no start or stop. It's not broken up by chapters. It just happens whenever he feels like it, and it's nearly, I don't even know how what I could attach it. It's erratic. It's erratic. Right. It's irrational, and I remember like one point where he's already a mayor and like he's getting ready to perform as like playing a piano like with the South Bend Symphony Orchestra, and it just loops right back into his childhood.
Yeah,
it just slingshots. And when
you can do that if you're Joyce.
Sure, fine, but this is no James Joyce. This is no James Joyce.
As somebody who enjoys poetry and I write some poetry of my own, like I can appreciate like looping back in and
you just got to do
stuff
it right,
like that.
Right.
But yeah, he's not doing it right.
Right. Well, I guess that's the thing is that like incredible writing breaks the rules in a he doesn't know how to.
Yeah, he doesn't know how to
follow the rules.
And so what I was really getting at here is that The Shortest Way Home. It's erratic, it's unpredictable, but it never goes below surface level. It's very superficial in all of its descriptions, and it is truly disturbing to me what he leaves out, or like to what degree he diminishes information. And I feel it's exactly the sort of thing that your typical unapologetic neoliberal would consume bit by bit, piecemeal, at lunchtime, in order to feel smart.
Hold on, I got
hold on.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to jump into so many tangents here, because this is entirely necessary. And Dorian, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry about that.
No. Well,
this is great.
Because the text itself is a series of tangents, right? Mm-hmm. But so if you want a complete text that describes the entirety of a life, you should pick up Home, and you should pick up American Psycho, and they describe one full book, but including an 80-page skincare routine, which is very good. But also when it comes to all that bouncing around and the surface area stuff, two things. The surface area stuff, it was driving me nuts, because I love it when authors talk about food. I really love food, and I love writing about food and hearing about it and stuff. And he talks about constantly,
food like a rat person.
Yeah, it's so boring. Like, when you're listening to something by like Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and listening to him like read or describe food, and it's the qualities of it, and it's beautiful. You can like taste and smell it, and everything's like this sparkling mass, and it's so good. But then with Buttigieg, and he brings up food constantly, we had butter and noodles with some sausage again. And it's not even that it's like boring food, it's just that he just lists off foods, and I hate it. And it's like him imagining what like a Marquez would write.
He doesn't go into like the poetics of like the buttery noodles.
Yeah, there's no adjectives, and
melted in my mouth or whatever. Right. Like, I've already written something better than what he's.
No, absolutely. and the other thing about how erratic it is that I was texting with them as I had finished maybe 3/4 of the book, and I read this thing in a fucking night, and it was the second worst reading night of my life. But I mentioned to them, the only things that he says about his military career are how he signed up and it was kind of disordered, and then when he was in line to sign up, he talked to a lady who liked his boots and thought they were cowboy boots, but they were not cowboy boots, and then someone had trouble peeing in front of him, and then that's all I thought.
Really it.
That's all that I thought there was. But then he does bring up the military again later, but it's so broken temporally in him, like, making sure that we keep certain things in mind, like the fact that he was in the reserves, that I figured that was the entirety of his military history, until later on he's like, and then we were out on the desert, and he tells us a very small amount, and then he says, and then we packed up and left. And it's like, it wasn't much more, but it's so erratic and broken that when I think we're done with a topic, we never are, but not ever in an interesting way, you know?
No.
Yeah, and
really.
so
It's just ADD.
This sounds like he writes these books kind of the way that he talks.
That's me.
What was that, John? Sorry, repeat that.
It sounds like these books are just like long form versions of what he does in front of cameras.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, and so this is the actual review that I wrote down of Trust. Basically, so imagine that somebody has been, like, you've lived your entire life, and somebody has been writing a biography of your life this whole time, right?
Yeah.
And what Pete has done with Trust is he's word searched trust. Yes. And every time trust came up, he took that, like, passage of words and slapped it into this fucking this fucking book that he's written.
Which is how you write an essay in undergrad.
Exactly.
Like, he's a great undergrad student, and that is the limits of his personality. So I'm gonna go through my like list off of what my takeaways were from Trust. First off, he claims that he won the primary in Iowa. Yeah, he does. And like it's not even like a contested fact in the book. He just won it, and the real shame is that they didn't announce it sooner. Just had to rat fuck Bernie in any way you can. So he goes deep into how there's been a bunch of conspiracy theories circling around about him. One of them is that he's a CIA asset, and it's like, okay, yes, I was an intel officer, but that doesn't mean that I'm a CIA asset. Yes, it does. He did not help to fix bread prices. No, he was only a consultant for the company that fixed bread prices. Yeah. And McKinsey and Company has a long track record of doing things exactly like this. He says nothing to flesh out his experience at McKinsey, by the way. He just mentions that he went there, and then, like, nothing else in home. Yeah.
That's like when he was in Chicago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he also brings up that he paid for some software from Shadow Incorporated, which is who ran the app that was managing the Iowa primaries.
It's such a joke name. I can't
like
it.
on its face, it's like,
that sounds like
why would you get involved with the company like
movie.
that?
I was about to say like a spin-off of something in like a spin-off Metal Gear Solid game, like
Hail Shadow Inc. So and then he goes in like some weird things about trust, which is Russia hurt the Hillary campaign by making voters not want to vote for her. Well, if you recall, she won the popular vote. He is firmly entrenched in the idea that American democracy, which he should know is a lie because America is a republic, not a democracy, and we have the Electoral College. But he's firmly like reinforcing the lie that America is a democracy, and you know the harm that Russia has done to our democracy is by making people like disillusioned in voting or whatnot. And no, what makes people disillusioned in voting is the actual American system, which is they vote and then a electoral college that's been gerrymandered like fixes the vote for them. Right. What else do I got here? Oh, at one point, so this is something that I found funny because I think we all have probably some meager background in this podcast. Who can tell me offhand what the term PPE means?
Oh, personal protective equipment.
Okay, yeah. So immediately we have at least one person. We've all been through like retail store
shortages.
No, not shortages. Like I want to say initiations, but I think what I'm looking for is
right, like the.
not,
I
not
have dumb
initiation.
academic words stuck in my head now.
Yeah,
Like the OSHA videos and shit.
Yeah, the OSHA video.
Yeah.
So everybody who's worked a low wage job knows what the term PPE means.
Yeah.
Offhand. He says before COVID started, nobody really knew what the term PPE was.
Right.
Okay.
And it came into the forefront of America.
He says that in Home too.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
That exact
insane.
same line.
Yeah.
That is insane.
He rattles off a few of the same things here and there, and
What
I think
a weird
that
line to rattle off again, though.
yeah, but I think that he within this confusion he wants to bring a sense of continuity between both books. Sorry, Mike.
Right.
Go ahead.
No.
But another thing that he also does in Home is he mentions these CIA things. Sorry, I feel it slipping out of my memory.
Ahead, please.
But he mentions how someone conspiratorially referred to him as a CIA asset, but he gives no context as to why they thought that or why they brought that idea in.
Which is going to lead into the big thing that I want to talk about in trust. So the first thing is, this is a direct quote from him, and this isn't necessarily on that subject, but we'll go into the CIA subject in a second. So this direct quote: "The U.S. has always, even in the 19th century, aroused strong and diverging feelings in different parts of the world." And he says that in a way that's like, I don't know why the U.S. has all these feelings associated. Yeah. It's like, we have fucked with every fucking part of the world since the 19th century. That's why there's all these feelings about the U.S.
Yeah.
So the thing that I really want to focus in on, though, the thing that, like, made my fucking mind want to leap out of my skull is he talks about this trip to Somaliland, which is a real place.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
In
yes.
Somalia.
Yeah, this is great.
Somaliland is like the unofficial official government of Somalia sort of thing going on. And this was back in 2008. He's working at McKinsey, and he says that he's really interested in like the politics of what's going on in Somaliland. And so he decides to take this tourist trip, quote unquote, tourist trip.
With a friend who's part of like a consulate. And
Right.
Nathaniel
With a
something.
friend that just happens to have like a political position in this organization. And what's so suspect about this is right before he does this trip, he's earned, and I promised to look this up, but I forgot to. I think it's the Truman Society or
The Truman Show.
No, the Truman Center. I actually wrote it down. Thank God. So he's picked up a fellowship with the Truman Center, and the Truman Center, for those who don't know about all these weird like crypto fascist think tanks that exist, is the Truman Center is a stepping stone for security minded is the word that they use. Security minded people who want to become like part of the Democratic leadership, and this is how he kind of enters into his political position, as in like running for mayor of South Bend, Iowa. Is it Iowa?
Indiana. South Bend,
Fuck,
Indiana.
why did I? Yeah.
Just shadow ink is.
Yeah.
And another thing about Somalia, especially, and Mogadishu, where he's visiting, is that there is notorious CIA black sites in this area. Not even like kept secret from the public sort of shit. Everybody there knows about it, and there's a huge black market arms like ring that operates in that area.
Because Somalia is the type of failed state that a lot of people imagine a lot of Africa is, though they're generally wrong, right? It's anarchic in the bad sense.
Yes.
Right. So you can kind of use that country and that space for whatever you want, and the U.S. does.
And so there's this story that happens on it's page 73, and I don't think I'll ever be able to forget that page number, because he basically tells a story of like, and everybody stood up and clapped. Which is where he's talking about being in Somalia. He's seeing a bunch of like money changers and stuff like that. And the money changers exist because like all the refugees that have escaped Somalia are sending money back to, you know, the people that still live in Somalia. And so these
the
money
wire
changes,
transfers have been changed into cash. And
right?
So they have
Yeah.
all sorts of
So
files.
there's money exchanges that are happening, and he goes into this story about how he's in the market, and one of the market stall guys like notices that they're Westerners, and he asks where they're from, and he's talked about in the book how travelers from the USA. Since the 70s have claimed to be from Canada to avoid like international ire.
Right.
And he says neither of us could commit to that lie, so we said we were from the USA.
We made a good movie about their welcoming parties for Americans.
Yeah, Black Hawk Down.
Yeah.
I was about to say.
So nobody likes America. They have good reasons for not liking
Uh-huh.
America. And one of the funny like asides of this book is that he blames he blames a lack of international trust of America on Trump, but he recognizes that trust internationally for America has been bad since like the 70s, which is like a weird like brain flip to do. But he talks about how his presence and Nathaniel's presence in the market square was like drawing a crowd together, and like people in the crowd are like insinuating that they want to beat him up. But he's having this conversation with this merchant, and at some point he says in Arabic, "My religion for you," or
it's
no, your religion for you and my religion for me.
And he expands on that for a ridiculous amount of time.
Yeah, he
saying,
expands on that
The ways
so
that I
much.
feel that some people would take that would be this, and the way that I thought people some.
And it's like, bitch,
And-
it's
and
already
it's-
clear.
And it's
Like, you're
exactly
fine.
like a neoliberal version of like, there was an atheist professor talking about how God isn't real, and the Marine veteran in the class stood up and
Which-
punched him in the mouth and said, God told me to do it, sort of stuff. But he eventually describes that, you know, the fact that he said this one simple phrase in Arabic leads to the entire crowd dispersing because the merchant recognizes that he's like cool, and so he like insinuates, oh, you're European, of course.
Yeah, he uses the term al-Arubi.
Yeah, all a ruby,
yeah,
which means, oh, you're from Europe, and you're always welcome here from Europe. And so that makes like the crowd disperse, and it's a total fucking lie.
Yeah.
Like literally, and everybody stood up and clapped bullshit. On top of the fact that his reason for being in that region is probably linked to some kind of black site intel operation.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's just it's a bread site.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's my main takeaways from Trust, and the thing that sent me down a spiral was that particular story.
Right.
God be blessed. The book ends very shortly after that, and just goes into a bunch of Pete's speeches, which I didn't care enough to read.
That's fair. He didn't write them anyway. So
yeah.
Another important thing that I feel like, and most of the listener knows this, I think, but for those that don't, when we mentioned that his father was a Gramsci scholar, Antonio Gramsci was a Marxist intellectual that spoke largely, and I would say primarily, about hegemony, which is, and was put in prison and continued to write in prison.
Yeah.
And so he's, there's some contrast here.
This is, I believe, is something really important to tie into home, because the only thing that that Pete ever touches upon his father's politics is a moment where they're at a football game, and they see like a heckler like scolding like the a football player for like his like academic acumen, saying like, oh, what are your grades, what are your grades, and Pete's dad is Robert Buttigieg. Sorry, I don't want to dishonor him by just calling him Pete's dad.
Yeah.
Right, that's right.
Says, oh, well, I'd like to see your grades, and then all Pete says is, then I realized my father was a man of the left, and that's it. That is the only thing. That's where it begins and ends of talking about his father, which is just so unbelievably.
Sorry about your son.
Yeah.
And that is something that should be brought up in Trust. The only time he brings up his parents in Trust is basically to say that they exist.
Yeah, you almost hear nothing about his mother except for like her insistence that he takes piano lessons, and that's about it.
Right,
and
yeah,
that's not even in
absent,
Trust. That's in Home. Or the shortest way home.
His dad comes up more, but still not much.
But in Trust, the only time he brings up his parents is basically just to acknowledge that they exist. And you would think like the son of like a pretty renowned scholar of Gramsci would have a little bit more to say than I have parents.
So I find it somewhat shocking and disturbing because I believe particularly in the scope of Antonio Gramsci, his theory, and it really isn't so much a theory in the scope of American politics as it is like a social law. His concept of cultural hegemony is something that it's not like caked or like layered with like red rose Twitter leftist buzzwords. Like if you explain Gramsci's theory of cultural hegemony to other people, and for the listener that may not directly understand this, I'm sure plenty of you listen to Gramsci, but for those who don't, or read Gramsci, but for those who don't, he states that, you know, people that are at like the top of social hierarchy and the top of political hierarchy dictate what is socially acceptable. And you could explain that to just about anyone on the political spectrum. Like even the most irascible, complete head-ass Trumpist would still be able to digest that.
And would agree with you.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like depending on your audience, it could just be like, oh yeah, somebody like, I don't know, Mark Zuckerberg sets the tone for how people are allowed to talk.
I mean, especially in like an accelerated sense, right?
And then like if you're talking to like the hardcore Trumpists, you could be like, yeah, the Hollywood elites, and everybody would understand.
Just say Zuckerberg for both of them.
So
probably Zuckerberg for both of them. But I wanted to make a little distinction.
The reason that I tie this in is because Robert Buttigieg's work. I have read. There are a couple translations of the prison notes out there, and his is the best.
Okay.
He really makes these critically important writings that are widely digestible to a vast number of people. You could explain Gramsci's writing in the prison notebooks to libertarians. You could explain it to a lot of liberals. You could explain it to Red Rose Twitter. You could explain it to lib lefts. You could explain it to Ted Kaczynski, and they'd get it. Like, they'd understand it. It's digestible, and I think that in that sense, it is very important as a piece of literature, particularly to an American audience where people are so polarized because of buzzwords, because of certain little like click words along political circles. Particularly, you see this on Twitter, which is just like a festering pot of people intentionally not understanding each other. It blows my mind that Pete...
Twitter is one of the worst fucking things that happen to politics.
Yes, well, it's just one of the worst things to happen.
Probably just cut it off there.
Yeah, just cut it off there. So I am shocked that he just reduces his father to a man of the left. Because what the fuck?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
He had a boring comeback to a heckler.
Yep.
Yes, it all boiled down to a heckler at a football game.
And his dad had a milk toast.
There was
to see your grades.
So there was
your report card.
If I remember correctly, the last time I went through Home was last week. It was the audiobook version that Pete narrates himself. He narrates both of his own books, and they're available on Audible if you really want to torture yourself.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Don't do it, but it's there. He describes that there is a football player who is brought back into the game after short academic leave because his grades were slipping. If I remember correctly, someone in the stands heckles the football player because of his grades, and then Robert Buttigieg steps in and talks to the heckler. He says, "I'd like to see your grades." And then Pete Buttigieg, this quote, the direct quote, he says, "That is when I realized my father is a man of the left." That is as deep as they get into his politics at all.
Also keeping in mind that the way that Pete got into university was because he wrote an essay about how much he admired Bernie sticking to his guns, essentially.
he is Pete Buttigieg is truly like the archetype of the Bernard Brethren. Nothing
Hates women.
encapsulates. He is a middle of the road Democrat who does a lot of work across the aisle. His actual like political platform is hazy and hard to really grasp, and that's why I went on Reddit, and I'll get back on that in a little bit.
Fair enough.
And like many Democrats, like Joe Biden, like LBJ, he has a terrible track record with race relations in his
that was
career.
something that struck me especially in Trust, is that he talks so much about how, you know, the black community in America has lost trust with the system of government. It's like,
when did they gain it?
Yeah, why should they ever have trust in the first place? But he talks about.
We gotta talk about the chief, right? The police chief.
I believe
we'll get into that as well.
Yeah.
But he spends like an inordinate amount of time on John Lewis, and the Alabama March through Selma that happens every year.
We'll do that with my beer.
Ooh, we're getting spicy.
Yeah,
we're doing Boilermakers.
I'm thinking about buying you guys dinner after this is over. So
So
I might as well.
I did.
We'll have to
just realize that
Order
I had eaten today.
Yeah.
So I'll fuck you.
I've had 2 bananas, a granola bar. No, that's fine.
Cheers.
2 bananas, a granola bar, and about 800 milligrams of caffeine. So
we are currently drinking the Jameson IPA edition cask mix.
Not an official sponsor.
not an official. This is not a plug.
Not an official sponsor yet.
Not an official sponsor yet. But the reason that they're doing it, and the reason that they're going to become a sponsor of ours, is because I got a job with a terrible title.
Go ahead.
What
say
is
it.
I'm a marketing consultant.
All right. Cheers to Mr. Suvin for that.
Yeah.
I am
Cheers
sorry.
to
I'm
bullshit
sorry
jobs.
for that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for that segue. However, if I'm actually going to listen to this man speak and look at him at the same time, I need some stiffer alcohol.
You're a wise man.
For
All
sure.
right. So
he talks a bunch about, like, so he was incredibly moved by the annual march that happens through Selma, Alabama. And John Lewis, you know, the first time he attended, John Lewis had just been diagnosed with cancer, and so everybody was like, oh, is he even going to be able to show up? And he eventually showed up. Like, he was driven in because, you know, cancer, no disrespect to John Lewis, meant in any part of the story that I'm telling.
No, not at all.
But Pete sees this moment. He's like, wow, it's so incredible and so moving. And then he goes into how for the last 50 to 60 years, America has done nothing substantial for Black Americans. Okay. And it's like, yes, that's exact. And another thing that he brings up out of this is that.
And so why don't they trust us?
There's a communist viewpoint that Western democracy, especially American democracy, has failed. And it's like, yes, after 60 years of trying to move a progressive, like, treat Black people like actual human beings sort of politics, and after 60 years that still hasn't happened. Yeah, that's a legitimate fucking complaint that American democracy, not a democracy, has failed.
At a certain point, democracy, and especially Republican democracy, becomes the eternal splitting of hairs, right?
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, I mean, should we talk about the chief yet, or should we go on to one of those videos that we have?
Let's roll the video, John.
Yeah, let's do some video work here.
Okay,
let's make John work because.
Stop.
Yeah, no.
Let's see where this is going. I don't like it.
I'm just saying, he's got it on Easy Street.
It says he was given a chance to respond.
Oh, it's this one. Here we go.
Oh, look at that face. Look at that commercial.
Yeah.
He is. So I think I've mentioned this comic before during this for similar reasons, but the comic Transmetropolitan. There's a character in it named the Smiler, who is exactly what would happen if you took Pete Buttigieg and glued him to Biden. It's the exact same person.
So just Pete Buttigieg.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
So check it out, guys. It's actually a very good comic if you like comics.
All right, we're ready for the video now.
The community of South Bend, Indiana has recently been in uproar over an officer-involved shooting. The police force
John,
in South Bend is now 6% black in a city that is 26% black. Why has that not improved over your 2 terms as mayor?
Because I couldn't get it done. My community is in anguish right now because of an officer-involved shooting. A black man, Eric Logan, killed by a white officer. And I'm not allowed to take sides until the investigation comes back. The officer said he was attacked with a knife, but he didn't have his body camera on. It's a mess, and we're hurting. And I could walk you through all of the things that we have done as a community, all of the steps that we took from bias training to de-escalation, but it didn't save the life of Eric Logan. And when I look into his mother's eyes, I have to face the fact that nothing that I say will bring him back. This is an issue that is facing our community and so many communities around the country. And until we move policing out from the shadow of systemic racism, whatever this particular incident teaches us, we will be left with the bigger problem of the fact that there's a wall of mistrust put up one racist act at a time, not just from what's happened in the past, but from what's happening around the country in the present. It threatens the well-being of every community. And I am determined to bring about a day when a white person driving a vehicle and a black person driving a vehicle, when they see a police officer approaching, feels the exact same thing. A feeling not of fear, but of safety. I am determined to bring that day about.
Do you know what he reminds me of? He reminds me of the twin presidential candidates in Futurama that like cookie cutter face.
Yeah.
And they're like, I think my opposing candidates' views don't go too far enough, and then the other one like just kind of like double negatives on top of him. That's who he is. It's just him. Yeah, it's just that those two, John Jackson and Jack Johnson, in one person.
So this might be a good time to bring up why we've decided to focus on Pete Buttigieg. And the reason
because we're rat-hating homophobes, right?
Right, yeah. No, the reason is that I think everybody in this room and the people in Texas can agree that Pete Buttigieg represents like a neoliberal form that's coming into power and we're going to have to deal with for the next like probably 20 to 30 years before they find a way to before they find a way to like rebrand themselves.
And what that is largely is just idpol that still says nothing but idpol.
Exactly. And so he's saying all these things about
very competent idpol, which is where you get the Petersonites.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And well, it took everything inside me to not say, all right, pause it. But where he says that I'm not allowed to take a position until all the fact. No, you are allowed to take a fucking position. Yeah, like take a fucking position,
it would
please.
Be political if he took a position, though.
And that's the thing is
he a politician?
They're trying to be anti. Like I'm taking a political stance. I need to wait until all the studies come out.
Yeah, because
the studies
they're not supposed to be politicians; they're supposed to be experts.
Yeah, and studies can be changed and morphed and made to suit whatever purpose you want them to be. So you do have to actually, if you want to have some kind of substantive politics, you do have to take a fucking stance.
Burn down the universities because they lead to these people. Instead, what you do is you have very large art schools, which are free also because they're just anarchist communes, because that's the only kind of art school that I want to see. And the other side, which includes all of the STEM education, are just trade schools, but trade school plus. Done. Done. Burn down the universities because I don't want to see a single one of these, more. My brain is broken now. I can't even speak.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, John. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say that I skimmed Pete Buttigieg's Wikipedia. I guess he has a degree in philosophy, which I guess he just like uses to like survive. Like he's been sitting on these like police scandals for like 10 years of like how he became mayor and stuff like that. And now he's Secretary of Transportation, and I was skimming articles. that involved Pete Buttigieg, and it's the most sanitized shit ever.
Yes.
Like audio recordings just got released of a conspiracy to commit fraud to get him elected.
Yeah.
But nobody's talking about it. They're just talking about how I
think,
guess like cute Pete Buttigieg is.
Right.
Ian, I don't want to interrupt you too much because I think you have something like just wanting to jump out.
Yeah.
When we talk about Pete Buttigieg as the transportation secretary, one of the like really prominent things that he did during
was thin out roads and make them smart.
Right. he relied on a consultant group to tell him where traffic lights should and not be, or should or should not be installed. And it turned out that one
what
of
do you
the
mean
like
traffic should or should not be installed?
Traffic lights.
Oh, okay.
Traffic lights, sorry.
Oh, I remember this piece. Yeah. Go ahead.
So he figured out where traffic lights should or should not be installed. And this consultancy group told him, yeah, this traffic light, kind of near the center of town, from what I understand, we don't need that. We can just shut it off. And so they bagged it over. And what happened, like, pretty soon after that is 2 black kids were killed trying to cross the street there. And his entire like diatribe that he wrote for the South Bend, Indiana Post, or I think that's the name of the fucking
the South Bend, Indiana Post Chronicle.
Whatever the fucking name of the local newspaper was, and his like finishing line was like, 2 young black children crossed the road and didn't make it across. And that's all he had to say about that.
Can I say anything else
What
about
the
it?
fuck?
No. Because I have to wait for all the facts to come in.
And that's exactly how this kind of person operates in the government sphere of like influencing things is, well, we talked to the consultant gave us their expert interpretation of how this should work, and then we had a tragedy, so we'll adjust from that tragedy. Right. Maybe, but it's never made clear that that tragedy was ever adjusted for. It's just purely reliant on this thing of like, how can we make the cost benefit analysis of how government should run? And that's not how government should run. That's how a business should run. Maybe not how government should run. Government should not be interested in cost benefit analysis. But that is what we're seeing with people like Pete Buttigieg, is that they rely on cost benefit analysis of like, okay, well, we can fix homelessness by giving all the homeless people like places to live, or we can just like set up spikes in all the major public areas so that they don't exist in our eyesight anymore.
I mean, that's the problem, since we've already done like full episodes on this specifically, but really the difference between something like liberalism and post-liberalism. That's a funny and neoliberalism is that liberalism was focused on Enlightenment type principles where each individual had their own individual rights, and that was the like real central everything, right? That was what we had to rely on and what we had to work our morals off of. And then moving into neoliberalism, it's like, well, we will support individuals through kind of like a Keynesian system, at the most optimistic. But really what we're going to do is we're just going to treat individuals as being part of larger businesses. And it's, I mean, I'm not a Hegelian by any means, but it's interesting to watch this progress from like, well, there's this abominable state, and then the antithesis to this abominable state is individual rights, and then the synthesis is, well, it's a state built off of individual rights that we negate. Like, it's anyway.
No, for sure.
So
yeah, Ian, we put you in the corner.
No,
time,
it's okay because
can't
this
put
is
Ian in the corner.
No, this is okay because the two of you have really like snowballed this right in the direction that I wanted to go in.
Yeah, not the right term.
So I want to discuss in part where without any measure of skepticism about where his career is going to go, one of the first points of research that I did after reading Home for the first time was going to his Reddit thread, and one of the first things that just popped out at me and scorched my retinas. I'm actually completely blind. That's how I don't know how I was able to drive down.
Skills are incredible.
Yeah, seriously. Joe
He drives
Biden.
by
It's a picture. It's a picture of like Pete Buttigieg with Joe Biden standing behind him in like a arms on shoulder, like kind of like a two-hand football contact spoon sort of position. And a direct Joe Biden quote is, "My job is to bring more Pete Buttigieg's into politics." Or that's not like a direct quote,
which should be horrifying.
I'm paraphrasing here. However, Biden is quite literally grooming Pete Buttigieg for DNC leadership, and that's exactly what the DNC needs in their future leadership, is exactly what they are now, but with the savvy tech edge and with the neoliberal idpol optics.
Yeah.
This is exactly, he is the poster boy.
Exactly.
This is the guy.
Sure.
And I believe, Mike, we've talked about this, that Pete plans on running on 2028 or after 2028.
I would say not the next election, but the election following for sure. He's going to be the prominent DNC candidate. He's already like, and we can call this all conspiracy theory shit.
Oh, here we are. Great.
Yeah, no, John does this. It's great.
Okay.
He's why the viewer is growing stronger every day. Fuck, what was I gonna say about Pete? He
was built in a lab.
He is built in a lab, certainly.
I think he's aroused by the Tao.
Yeah. But not the Tao that moves without moving, but the Tao that has like bears and bulls involved.
So I got into a really interesting rabbit hole on this thread back in like literally when Mike and I first started talking about doing this specific episode of the pod, which was done last year. We started this conversation, started working on this last year, and
you have to talk to us for about a year before we let you on the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. And so there was
keep sending the stupid messages.
Some controversy. Yeah, that's exactly how I got on here. Some controversy about whether or not Pete was in favor of universal healthcare, universal single-payer healthcare.
I believe in a plan.
His supporters ardently believe that he is. They ardently believe that he is. And they roll back to a tweet from maybe like 2013 or 2014 where he expresses an interest, a very vague interest, and I mean extremely vague, in well, I believe that everyone should have health care, which is not an endorsement for single-payer health care. It is not an endorsement. And then
that's what Biden think that. That's what Biden supporters
also
think.
Also true. Yeah.
And within a year of that, he then goes on to say, well, I wouldn't want to do anything that would cause a loss of jobs in the insurance sector.
That's the real concern. Not like those people in the insurance sector could be like rehired into government jobs managing the new government like mandated healthcare system or anything like that.
Yeah.
They would lose their jobs.
Look, them losing their jobs and being placed on unemployment would be so horrible versus I don't know, however many thousands of people dying from cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's.
I mean, you got to be on the side of the insurance.
I'm a little bit on the side of people dying from cancer. Not really.
No matter how you feel about universal single payer healthcare, in regards to the DNC, in regards to Pete, he dances the very same dance that Biden danced during the primaries in debates, where he kind of gently danced around these issues without really committing to them, without really opposing them. where he leads his voters into hope.
Yep.
He leads his voters into trust.
Yeah, trust.
There you go.
There's
So-
our
Yeah,
word.
so-
hope
John-
was Clinton's, and now trust is
John, you might be able to look this up, but on the same subject, Biden's newest budget proposal excludes many of the things that he said about healthcare.
Of course.
So it's one thing for them to say these like performative things about like, yeah, everybody should have healthcare. It shouldn't just be like the public option only. But we can work around like the choice between a private system and a public option, and make that work. Well, the Biden administration is already like going back on like, well, not necessarily going back, I guess, just laying out the groundwork that we're not going to give you health care. We're going to make sure that you have to pay for it. Like,
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if we can find the article directly right now, and it's fine if we don't. I saw, John, that you pulled up something before I got us into this tangent. Oh, Jesus.
Oh yeah, no, but a wild Pete supporter appears. Pokemon battle
that's
music,
good.
Okay.
which leads to
A Palestinian and Israeli flag sitting next to each other in the window.
disgusting centrist.
Yeah.
Really bad.
The Gal Gadot politics enjoyer.
So this was the real impasse in my understanding of life and existence in itself, that people experience reality in drastically different ways than I do.
Of course.
I really thought this was just kind of like, I just kind of chalked it up to brainworms, but this is definitely
We
like,
got brainworms though.
yeah. This was definitely like the tipping point where I'm like, wow, this person lives in a completely divorced, completely separate reality from the one that I'm living in right now.
Yeah, I'm arguing with a bunch of people on my Instagram post because I called Netanyahu Jewish Hitler.
Oh.
Jitler, as it were.
Which I'm not wrong about. And I have specifically a person with a blue line flag as their profile picture,
Nice. Oh, really?
telling me that I'm deranged and mentally disabled.
Okay,
and
well,
shit like that.
there was actually something that I saw, a direct quote from 2012. I believe it was in Israeli Minister. I'm going to pull it up. Where the gentleman literally says, "I am perfectly happy to be a fascist."
Yeah,
This is like a direct
I
quote.
heard something.
Yeah, no, I'm pulling it up as you guys can.
But also, we need to look at this police chief bit.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. I was just about to ask like what else we needed to dig into on the Buttigieg.
That's the
subject.
main one that I can think of. Otherwise, I feel like we've
Yeah,
touched
I
on
went
most
into
of it.
my CIA black site stuff. So maybe we need to go into your police chief bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's what he said in the book is pretty limited. So Ian may be able to, or will be able to, extrapolate on this a bit more. Oh, go on.
So here we are. Miri Regev, current Minister of Culture and Sport, 2012.
Yep.
I am happy to be a fascist.
Yeah, the Minister of Culture and Sport.
Weird.
That's not a weird place for a fascist to be.
Yeah, that's not like Aryan Nation adjacent stuff or anything like that.
but yeah, so there was a black police chief there that had to be removed per some people's thinking, and it's the way that he describes it in the book is that he's confronted by this impossible situation where either he could bring in some kind of outsider and it would piss people off, especially because he'd be replacing an African American with an outsider that's probably white.
He was white.
And he was white, of course. Or he could go on and deal with it some other way. He's kind of ambiguous about it. And then he says, okay, well, I decided what I would do is I would call him and ask him to resign. And that it's terrible to call someone and ask them to resign. And that's pretty much the full fucking thing that he talks about.
Yeah.
He talks a little bit about how there are tapes phone calls that led to this that he wasn't able to release because of like one and two party recording laws in Indiana, but then he never really describes much more. But yeah,
he okay. So what it really comes down to is that, and we're gonna watch this video in a moment where he worms his way out of this, or weasels, or rodentias, or
rodentias. Yes, rodentias.
There's also in a video the book itself, in Home itself, the real landmark statement that he makes is, "I made the controversial decision to appoint a police chief from Massachusetts."
Right.
And that is really all he actionably and meaningfully says about it, which is another just truly horrifying moment where he leaves out these really crucial details about a very critical point in his life that it just instills personally in me a great deep-seated distrust.
Yeah,
for sure.
Oh yeah,
distrust.
And are we ready to roll into this now, or
Stuart?
From Valerie, from London, Valerie. But first, I need to give it some background. Back in 2012, it was discovered that the
Pete Buttigieg needs to fire his makeup girl.
Police chief of South Bend, who was African American, had been taping
makeup person.
Conversation.
What his arms hang like that too? Like,
it looks like he's like his fight or flight response is accurate.
It really is,
No.
yeah.
So I think I have some insight on this. He consciously wants to like go to like parade rest or something like that in the military, but he knows that he's not in the military anymore, and so he wants to go to like at ease. But he still has that drive to go to parade rest. So he's found a middle point between parade rest, which is hands behind the back, and at ease, which is hands wherever you want them to be.
So he's either broken by PTSD, which is unlikely, or he's broken just by being a cuck.
Yes.
Yeah.
The latter, for sure. Go ahead, John.
Of senior police officers who were allegedly using racist language, in particularly racist language about him. You demoted the police chief. No action was taken.
The beta version of the lat walk.
Also, what has come out in these audio recordings, which Anderson Cooper I don't think mentions, is that these cops in these audio recordings used favors with community business owners and fundraisers to raise a large portion of Pete Buttigieg's political war chest.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Against the officers in question. London Valerie wants to ask about this. She's a freshman at Harvard from San Antonio. Great. London?
Mayor, my question is straightforward. Yeah. What are on the secret tapes regarding the demotions of South Bend's Black Police Chief Darrell Boykins?
So the answer is I don't know. And the reason I don't know is that these tape recordings were made in a way that may have violated the Federal Wiretap Act. That's a federal law that controls when you can and can't record people. And the allegation was that the police chief was using these recordings to try to figure out what was going on with internal rivalry.
But he says in the book that it might be even illegal for him to listen to them. I doubt that it's illegal for him to listen. I think it's probably illegal for that to be shared with him. But then someone just do it anonymously. You're a politician. You can figure this out. Okay, sorry. Go on.
Yeah, no. I mean, I haven't. What I've read being reported is that in court documents, city attorneys had listened to it, and city attorneys representing Pete Buttigieg had listened to these audio recordings before they got sealed.
That's funny.
So I'm sure he knows what's on the audio recordings.
Yeah, doubtless,
with other police officers, and allegedly broke the Federal Wiretap Act when he did that. That's a law that's punishable by a term in prison, and so I'm not going to violate it, even though I want to know what's on those tapes like everybody else does. Right now, this is going through an incredibly long, frustrating, and expensive legal process that in the end will allow a judge to say whether or not the content of these recordings...
Again real quick?
Yeah.
He says that this is an incredibly long, frustrating, and expensive legal process, but can we imagine any other, like, he wants it to be an incredibly long, frustrating, and expensive process so that he can argue against that process ever happening, right?
He's had 10 years of controlling the narrative. So, like, even though it's being released, it's 10 years of controlling the narrative, and now he's Secretary of Transportation, the most fucking forgettable fucking secretary, but still viable to stay in politics, like, in the future. He's just blending into the background.
Right.
So he can survive.
He has a selectively visible role where if the media wants to give him attention, he will have attention.
Right.
If he doesn't want attention, he can fade into the background and no one is going to see what he's actually doing at work. I really, truth be told, I don't know much of what his current role is. I'm really, there isn't much to be said.
Trains.
I like trains.
Yes, he likes trains.
A far less intelligent thing to say, but I make a rule generally based upon my own physiology to not make fun of people's foreheads. But holy fuck, this man's forehead is bizarre. It gets wider the further you go up, and it's just it's scary.
He needs to be lined up. That's all.
He needs to be lined up.
Yeah,
he's a geometric oddity.
A non-Euclidean governor, mayor. Non-Euclidean mayor.
All right, John, go ahead. Sorry.
Let's get out of here. I'm tired of this shit.
So we can figure out whether it's true or whether it's not true, that there's something on there that we need to be concerned about. The reason I demoted the chief was that I found out that he was the subject of a criminal investigation, not from him, but from the FBI. And it made it very hard for me to trust him as one of my own appointees. It was frustrating and painful, too, though. He was the first African-American chief in our city's history. And one of the reasons I had asked him to serve in the first...
Go ahead, John. Don't pause for our shitpost.
In my administration was a great track record in community policing, which is a huge priority for us because we're a racially diverse community. And speaking of things you learn along the way, and in particular, lessons I learned the hard way as a mayor, one of the things I realized was that while I was absorbed in just making sure that we weren't tripping on any landmines related to laws about what you can and can't record, I was, frankly, a little bit slow to understand just how much anguish underlay the community's response to this. Because for people...
So I also noticed that, like, Pete Buttigieg does this, like, fucking I'm a toxic, like, simp that's going to, like, gaslight you into accepting me through, like, me, like, sympathizing. Like, white, like, he's just, like he nice. Just, like, I don't know, just, like, nice guy, like, white knight tries to, like, simp the black community of his town, like constantly.
100%.
It's just like, you know what? I failed. And I know that makes that upsets people. It upsets people that
I failed. I'm very sorry for that, but I'll do better in the future. And then he never does better in the future.
No, Oh, and actually, I believe all the things in the police department got worse under Pete Buttigieg.
Yes.
Also, like because those cops
from his
that were in those recordings got leadership roles. After they kicked out a bunch of...
well, actually, yes, I was.
Oh, he's always got something.
I'm sorry. That he has really proven himself to be a master of talking around the actual, like, substance, the meat of the issue, and just creating this really beautiful, this very easily digestible fluff. It's like the Cheeto Puffs of political dialogue.
For sure.
Go ahead, roll the video, please.
Oh, well, and also he even with these documents being unsealed, like, he is definitely going to survive this because
without a doubt, without a doubt.
Because it's just other people conspiring to do things that are just kind of grayly illegal about, like, campaign finance. Like, worst case scenario, Pete Buttigieg has to, like, give the money up or something.
Us four people are going to be the only people who actually give a shit about this in 7 years.
For sure.
We're going to be like he's
and the listener
No,
the listener
will forget. They'll care for the 30 minutes we bring it back up.
Yeah. When we
First
have,
off,
Fuck you. You're idiots,
pres-
and I don't like you, and you got to stop sending me your poopy diapers.
if you ever talk about the listener that way again,
Well, you'll fuck me? You'll suck my dick?
yep. Yep.
Play the video, John.
People in the community, it wasn't just about whether we were right or wrong to be concerned about the Federal Wiretap Act. It was about whether communities of color could trust that police departments have their best interests at heart. And the more I learned about that, the more I realized that lifting the veil of mistrust between communities of color and our police department had to be one of my top priorities as mayor. It's why we instituted civil rights training and implicit bias training. It's why we implemented body-worn cameras for all of our officers. It's why we directed officers to make more foot patrols and get to know people in these neighborhoods, especially neighborhoods experiencing a lot of crime.
When officers go out and they do these like, let's get to know the fucking community bullshit, all they're doing is like pre-introducing themselves to their victims.
Oh well, or intelligence gathering, like
intelligence gathering,
One,
introducing themselves to their victims, so their victims like have a level of trust.
Yeah.
There is nothing good about this like, oh no, we did a community outreach program and the police, who are definitely going to shoot somebody from that community in a couple of months,
maybe
or weeks.
Like,
hey kid,
wasn't there a kid that a cop was playing basketball with that he later like shot or tased a year later?
Yeah, right. I don't know the specific story, but yeah, I'm positive that exists, of course.
Hey kid, so you saw me at the barbecue earlier this week. You got any weed on you?
Yeah, exactly that kind of shit.
Yeah,
like the trust building. I made this joke on Facebook a couple of days back where somebody was defending like police outreach programs, and they were talking about how the police would walk their beats and interact with the people on those beats. And the joke I made was, if police want to interact with their beats, they can just go home to their wives.
Because they beat their wives.
40%. 40%.
Yeah, whatever.
That we know of.
That we know of. So probably
60%.
60%. Yeah.
Well, and I'm pretty sure that part of the reason why cops stopped doing foot patrols or started staying in their cars was because in the 60s, when people were tired of teenagers being just beaten by cops, like the communities would surround the cops. And the cops would have to like brutalize their way out of the community on foot.
That's what we saw during during the BLM protests, where people would de-arrest people by surrounding a cop car.
Beautiful word.
De-arrest is great, and every time I see somebody being de-arrested, I get stiff. I'm not gonna lie.
I do get a little stiff. Yeah. A little half mast at least. Yeah.
So let's go on with Pete Buttigieg.
Is this video? Is this 9-minute video really gonna be something we watch all the way through?
Before we roll into this, this is a great moment to tie this in, as we're talking about policing, and we're talking about him now as the Secretary of the Department of Transportation. The DOT oversees emergency medical services, and in most states in America, you have to have your basic EMT cert in order to become a police officer.
Sure. Yeah,
so I am personally very interested, and this is something to ricochet off of the listeners, to keep an eye on what he does and his interactions with emergency medical services. I don't know if there will be any, but that is an interesting intersection, as he already seems to have his little rat balls deep into police affairs at the moment.
No, that's great. That's a really interesting thing to keep your eye on.
His little fucking cheese balls. All right, John. Let's round out this clip.
I hate this.
We're not done with the clip yet.
It's 9 minutes long. We've listened to 2.
Did you really want to listen to him ramble around, or
I mean, that's a really good still.
That it is a really good still. I actually love this. Yeah.
Actually, you guys,
little rap boy Pete.
The listener that comes in from my end definitely understands, but in general, maybe
So this picture right here is like the '90s Nick Land image, and click to that other video.
Well, see, here's the thing: is that
The other video that you have.
Democrats need a tech savvy.
That is 2000 whatever Nick Land.
Democrats
That's beautiful.
Democrats need a
I didn't
tech savvy
land.
weirdo. Democrats need a tech savvy weirdo that has this weird racist thing going on, and so like
right.
Land.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Also that. Yeah. We do need a hyper racist.
You found him.
Yeah.
You found him.
We found him in Butt Judge.
Yeah, we have Kamala Harris.
Is Butt Judge? Is that a homophobic thing to say, Butt Judge or Butt Egg?
I don't care.
I've heard spins on his name that are way more homophobic than that. So you're.
But I was gonna say one. I was gonna try to think one up and say it.
The imagination of like, I don't care what his fucking last name is pronounced as. Like, I'll call him Butt Egg till the end of my days. He's not a gay icon. He's not a gay.
He could be a gay icon.
He's not Marsha P. Johnson. He's not like.
Yeah, he's not doing anything for the community.
He should throw a brick at a cop. If he wants to become a gay icon, he should throw.
If he throws a brick at a cop, I will call him whatever his actual pronunciation is. If you
won't call him Pate Butt Egg anymore.
Yeah, I will call him. I will call him. I will call him Pete the Buttigieg. The Buttigieg.
That's actually pretty close. You got dangerously close to pronouncing it correctly.
Yeah.
I will call him whatever he wants to be called if he throws a brick at a cop, but he'll never do that.
I'll
because
call anyone whatever they that's already like that's instant karma points in my book. You throw a brick at a cop, I'll sit down, I'll talk to you, I'll have words with you.
I'll suck your dick.
Fam. What else we got?
Yeah, no. Do we have anything else really?
We have this other video here.
Yeah, this is just the journalist who interviewed all the cops involved who started.
He looks
talking.
happy after that.
He really enjoyed himself.
Yeah, no, this was last week that a judge released the audio tapes, and I guess this was the journalist that went through the court documents and has been trying to make this a national story, but of course it never will be.
Yeah, so I feel like whatever this gentleman has done is probably like one of the best journalistic pieces that's happened in a long time. However, it's 19 minutes long, and I don't know what the content is, and maybe we can like siphon it down for the next episode or
that seems
later.
Good.
Yeah.
Also, I want to point one thing out about our journalists, which is that
the lime green walls.
Not even that,
okay.
but it is kind of about that.
Well,
but
he
apart
has a
from his like
selfie ring
fancy looking ring light in the back,
using.
It's always funny to me when I see journalists speaking from their homes, because their homes always seem like about as shitty as mine.
Yeah.
You know?
I was going to say shitholes.
So, about as shitty as mine. Yeah, exactly. And so it's like, oh, man, I get it. All journalists make like up to and capped at $50,000 a month.
Well, journalists
or a year. Jesus, a month would be great.
Well, if you're Barry Weiss.
Oh, yeah.
Journalists that are pulling the weight and writing puff pieces.
We're making way more.
Pete Buttigieg. Yeah, they're making a ton of. They're pulling six figures, no problem. People who are like reporting are either not getting paid, they are being imprisoned, or they're angrily posting 19-minute rants to YouTube.
Right.
So.
Right.
Yeah, it is a bit of a victory lap video for sure.
Okay.
We do have this Cornell West video we have.
Let's watch the Cornell West video because I will never say no to Cornell West.
Before we do that, because that's probably a great palate cleanser.
Yeah.
Is that I just want to say that when I was growing up, so like when I was in high school, I used to hear writers that I would talk to because I've always wanted to be a writer.
Always wanted to be a man of words.
But they would talk about how horrible it was that they got paid like $50 to $250 to get into a magazine and have like a piece there, and it's like, bitch, we blog now.
We do this shit for free.
Things are bad. Things are really bad for anyone that wants to like put information in the world. Anyway, that's all I got.
All right.
Brother Pete, but Brother Pete is like family to me. You know, his father was the great Joseph Buttigieg, who translated Antonio Gramsci. He was the Dean of Humanities at Notre Dame, and he was like a blood brother with me. We used to go to Italy every summer. So I remember Pete when he was in diapers. I remember I gave him his first $5 bill right in his diaper. So I love that brother as family, you see. And so I see him, I give him a hug. I said, please give me a hug to Ann. Brother Joseph died a year ago and so forth. But I tell Pete up front, I said, now you know when it comes to the legacy of Gramsci, Brother Pete wrote his senior thesis on who? Does anybody know who he wrote it on? He wrote it on Brother Bernie as exemplar of integrity. He lived in my same room as a freshman at Harvard, Hallworthy 8. We lived in the same room, but 35 years
B8
different. You see. So he's like family. But I'm just honest with him. I said, brother, now you know I can't support you.
He's talking
Sorry,
about
I was just saying that, like, his very high school sounding paper about Bernie, I thought and said it was about him in senior year of high school. It was, in fact, senior year at Harvard during his BA.
And I'd like to issue a retraction. I have been unwittingly calling him Robert. My mind is skipped.
It's Joseph.
I've been awake for 17 hours and my brain is not working properly.
The fact that you did a podcast after driving for, I don't know, a day almost is too much.
Yeah.
I used to do drives all the way up the coast, and afterwards I barely had.
We didn't make him do this, by the way.
I didn't have the energy in my body.
I have to go out on a limb and say they did not compel me to do this. I did this on the only off day that I have this week, just out of pure madness. But after reading both of this man's books, I imagine that I would be compelled to do any sort of number of insane things. So
suck any kind of
thing. I'm too surrounded by autism to finish my compliment. So go on.
Would you? I love you to death. You're gonna be a member of the family all, but you just part of that same milquetoast neoliberal crowd I've been critical of all this time. I can't support you, brother. Not at all. You see? Now, is he better than Trump? Of course he's better than Trump. All of y'all better than, I mean, the bar is about this low.
That Beautiful. Is absolutely scathing.
What a wholesome young man, while still being scathing.
If Pete
then he touched the ground to say, "This is the bar."
That didn't make him cry. I guess it probably didn't, but
no.
I mean,
he's a sociopath.
No. Yeah. Do we have evidence that Pete Buttigieg is capable of emotion?
Yeah. Do we have evidence that Pete Buttigieg?
I feel like he does. He mentions crying somewhere.
Do we have evidence that Pete Buttigieg has tear ducts?
Do lizards have tear ducts?
Yeah, do lizards have tear ducts?
You got to make up your mind. Is he a lizard or a rat?
They could be both.
Yeah, why not both?
All right.
Yeah.
Divergent evolution.
Okay.
Convergent evolution. Oh my God!
You
all
don't
sorts
have
of
to tell
things
me how
going
to
on
criticize this man.
Hell yeah! God bless you, Cornell, Mr.
Yes.
West. I'm sorry,
Mr.
Dr. West. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's like 30 lashes in the Benzo Rehab dungeon.
That's true. That's what I'm looking forward to. Yeah.
Do we have anything else that we need to like really discuss about Pete Buttigieg as we sign off?
I hope not.
No, I mean I got pitches, but nothing about butt judge.
All right, Danko, Dorian.
Well, do we want to give our guest here a chance to do pitches first?
Sure. Yeah.
Do you have any?
None whatsoever.
Damn it!
I highly recommend. Well, hang on a second, because I'm about to help you out here. I highly recommend you don't follow me on Instagram because there's nothing to do with anything remotely related to the Benzo Rehab Dungeon. My Instagram handle that Mike dropped, mostly posting about like my own like various like art things in my personal life. However, if you want to engage me about things of political nature, literature, art criticism, and Danko will hold me to this. I will be joining the Truncata Workshop.
Nice.
I will be joining the Truncata Workshop at the writer tier. So you will be able to engage with me directly. My next day off will be Wednesday of this following week. Wednesday of this following week, I will become a member of Truncata. You can engage me there. You can engage me with Danko, and I believe Mike even pops into Truncata every now and then.
Almost every week.
Almost every week.
Every week, maybe. Yeah.
I will be committing at least some of my free time every week. I've wanted to join Truncata since it started. I only recently got out of the pit of unemployment due to coronavirus, and it's going to be something that I do for myself and the determination to become a better writer.
Oh, thank you, man.
Really quickly. I would like to contest the idea that the Benzo Rehab Dungeon is not a place for poetry or works of artistic accomplishment.
Okay, so let me post. If you like grindcore, fine, follow me. If you like, if you like harsh noise and power electronics, follow me. If you like digital art, follow me.
And I feel like that's more people that follow us than you think.
Okay, and if you like, I don't know, like pictures of the wilderness of California, follow me because there's a lot of that.
I like his account, so you know. Yeah. Anything else?
No, I think
no. I meant for him, for me, yeah. Again, our next open workshop is on the 29th. So everyone and anyone is invited into that, regardless of whether you want to sign up or have. I'm deciding during the next 2 days. It will probably be decided tomorrow what the theme will be. We have a few kind of bubbling around. So yeah, that'll be the 29th at 11 a.m. PST on Saturday. That's already clear enough. And otherwise, we're changing a lot of stuff that's happening with Truncata, but one of the major changes that's still kind of in the works is that because I have sought and found other employment, and I'm no longer feeding myself using like, a couple $100 a month, I am now going to start taking the money from Truncata and putting it towards things like publication, towards swag, towards things that you all ultimately get back. And so go ahead and join us at patreon.com/TRUNCATA. And whatever money you put towards this is either going to go towards making it so that I am no longer wearing the dirty diapers that I'm wearing, or they will come back to you through either beautiful printed material or shirts or something. So,
or if you pay enough, we'll just send you dirty diapers.
Yeah, dirty diapers.
I mean, honestly, just tell me you like me and that's fine. Anyone else? Mike?
All right. Well, I think that maybe concludes.
I feel relieved to have this weight off my shoulders. I've been wanting to dunk on this piece of shit for the longest time now. Cheers.
Gentlemen.
To my favorite butt judge.
We did it. We love you, as always. Please take your medicine.
Please take mine too.
Make sure to share with your friends.
Good night.
Good night.
Hi, Michael Deebs here, with no gun pointed at my head. Please know that all content created for the Benzo Rehab Dungeon is and always will be freely available. However, if you would like to support this creation of content, we here at Camp Benzo would appreciate it, as the production itself is not free of cost. Anything donated will go to covering the various subscription fees maintained for content production or improving and expanding the content produced. If you are able to, please head on over to patreon.com/BenzoRehabDungeon. We also have shirts for sale on Teespring, all priced as low as we can get them without turning much or any profit. They are mostly so that you can show your loved ones that a necessary intervention may be on the horizon. Links to the merchandise storefront and our various social media profiles can be found on our link tree, which is the word linktr.ee/BenzoRehabDungeon. As always, we love you. Please take your medicine.